Hey YouTube family, I'm back to tell you a little bit more about my thyroid cancer journey. If you're here, my name is Brittany, and last October in 2018 I was diagnosed with somewhere between a stage 2 or 3 papillary thyroid cancer. I've received 2 treatments of radioactive iodine and 2 serious surgeries to remove cancerous thyroid and lymph nodes. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about preparation for the low iodine diet and radioactive iodine swallow, as well as being prepped for my neck dissection that I had in April. The first thing that I want to say, first and foremost, is how much I love my medical staff. And I don't think that I've made that apparent enough. I know in my last video I talked about how my emergency room experience after my calcium drop was absolutely terrible, but in all honesty, my doctors, my actual team of medical staff, which is about 10 or 11 individuals, is absolutely amazing. I could not have asked for a better team of doctors. And the love and support that I've also received from my boyfriend and my family and a lot of my friends and co-workers, it's just been amazing. I could not have done this year without them. I really and honestly and truly did not know how strong I was until I went through this past year. And I think that a lot of you, if you ever experience anything like this, thyroid cancer, any sort of cancer or serious illness, you'll definitely be able to relate to this. So I just wanted to say that, and I just wanted to disclaim that first and foremost, just to start out the video. But I am here to talk to you guys about what happened directly after my thyroidectomy into preparation for the next things to come. So I mentioned in my last video how fantastic I felt after having my thyroid removed. When you have no thyroid, or if you have hypothyroidism, a lot of times you have a side effect of very, very low TSH. Thyroid stimulating hormone is what that means. Well, I found out after having my thyroid removed that my TSH became extremely low. It was actually somewhere around 25 or 30 for quite a couple of months. And so I should have felt fatigued pretty bad for the most part. And so when my doctor asked, are you fatigued? Are you experiencing headaches? Any of these things, I wasn't. I was so used to how terrible I felt from having so much cancer in my body that I didn't notice the fatigue that I had, because I didn't really have any fatigue. Even though my TSH was so low, I still felt worlds better than I did before I had my thyroid removed. It was like years came off my skin, my hair started to feel soft and normal again. Like I said in my last video, I dropped weight really quickly. It was just so strange. A lot of people you hear about gain weight when they have their thyroid removed. I was concerned that starting to take thyroid medication would cause me to gain weight, which is not the end of the world. It's more important that you don't have cancer, but it's really honestly the loss of the thyroid that causes the weight gain to happen, because your hormones and everything are trying to get normalized. But for me, it was the exact opposite. I dropped a lot of weight really quick. I basically went from 140 pounds to around 120 pounds in around 2 months. I guess that does sound kind of unhealthy when you think about it, but I also was going through some personal life changes at the time, and I was trying to eat really healthy, but mostly I didn't really change anything. After logging and tracking and looking back at all that, mostly that was from just not having a cancerous thyroid anymore. I had not started my brand name Synthroid at the time, which is sometimes a side effect when you take levothyroxine or Synthroid, that you lose a little bit of weight, but I had not started that yet. So I know now that the reason why I felt so much better and looked better was because I didn't have that huge chunk of cancer in my body. My ENT's PA, who I love and adore so much, told me that when I was in my surgery, the right side of my thyroid was so large and the left side of my thyroid was so small. So basically, the left side of my thyroid I mean, there was just hardly anything there. It was basically all cancer. So I had this much of a thyroid on the left and about this much of a thyroid that was all tumor on the right. So it's just really very interesting how it just slid off, and I've talked about that a little bit in my last video. But I don't mean to get on a tangent. I want to keep these videos rather short. So I'm just going to go straight into preparation and low iodine diet, radioactive iodine swallow, and into discovering that I had metastasized cancer and having to have my neck dissection. So it was to be determined, and after switching insurances and all sorts of things, I was really happy that I didn't have to do the low iodine diet around the holidays. The low iodine diet can be kind of delicious, but it gets pretty old after a while. And if you're an American or someone who celebrates Christmas and Thanksgiving, you certainly don't want to go through the low iodine diet during the holidays if you don't have to. So honestly, in all honesty, I was pretty happy that I didn't have to do that. I was not able to do the treatment until my new insurance became effective, and my new insurance did not become effective until the beginning of January. So I went through the whole month of November, December, and January just in preparation. I didn't receive my radioactive iodine swallow until the very, very first day of February. Now, I remember in that time, I did still feel some lumps in my neck, but I was hoping and praying that they were nothing, that they, were just lymph nodes moving around after having my thyroidectomy. I did have a little bit of reservation about it and anxiety about it, but I did not mention it to my oncologist. The exact opposite happens now if the slightest thing is wrong, and I will say I do have a lot going on now, which I will get into in my next couple of videos. The slightest pain that I experience now, and my doctors will tell you, I explain that to them and I tell them, and I am very aware when there's something wrong in my body. But at that time, I was just sort of learning and figuring out how my body worked again and what was happening to my body after having my thyroid removed, so I tried not to fret about it. So, of course, having the low iodine diet occur isn't always the easiest thing. I had to give up a lot of foods that I like, but the hardest thing for me to give up, honestly, on the low iodine diet was just bread and cheese. Otherwise, it wasn't really that hard. I'm not a big meat eater. The worst thing about being on the low iodine diet and receiving radioactive iodine, especially if it's a really high dose, is not being able to be around your loved ones. I remember it was really hard for me because I work with children and I have pets, and I have a lot of friends, or had a lot of friends, who were pregnant at the time. So not being able to be around them was really hard. After receiving my very high dose of 150 millicuries of radioiodine, I was sent away, and you're basically isolated for days. You're not allowed to be near anybody for longer than 10 minutes, and they have to be, at least 20-30 feet away from you. So it was hard. It was especially hard not being able to hug and be around my boyfriend for several days, which was hard. At the time, and most of my life, I've lived on my own, so I'm kind of used to being on my own anyway, but I'm pretty used to being around people, so not being around him especially was really hard. I remember when I was able to come, when I was allowed to come home, allowed to be in my own home, he did come, and I remember it was on Super Bowl Sunday, and it was so hard. We were in the same room, and he had to be on the couch way over there, and I had to be in another room. So when he stayed with me those next few nights, it's pretty serious business. The radiation can actually radiate through the walls. People don't actually realize how fatal it is, and in some countries they actually quarantine you in the hospital. They don't let you go home. Just here where I live, as long as you follow the rules, you have to sign several forms and saying that you won't make yourself a danger to anyone, and so it's a little different. But finally, after about the 4th day, we were able to be around each other again. I remember that on Super Bowl Sunday, the day that I was able to come home, I was just really sad, and he kissed me on the head, you know, not thinking anything of it. And I was like, no, I can't believe you did that. I was so mad at him for kissing me on the head, but I was also so sad. But anyway, you know, the time was up, and after a couple of days I was able to be around people. I was able to go back to work and be around children. I did want to say a little bit about the side effects I had after the radioactive iodine swallow. A lot of thyroid cancer patients experience different things that I had experienced. I did not experience any sort of nausea or anything like that. It basically just felt like I had a really terrible cold, a really bad flu without the stomachy stuff. I just felt very exhausted, very fatigued, and I just felt like I had a really bad sore throat. And honestly, it also felt like my neck was on fire, was being stabbed. I still feel like my neck is being stabbed. I still experience a lot of pain. And just because I am a 1 in a million previous hopefully former cancer patient, I just happen to be one of the ones that experiences pain from radioactive iodine. So it was really uncomfortable, yes, but a lot of the things that a lot of thyroid cancer patients experience, I did not experience. I just had, you know, just a really sore throat, really terrible sinus problems, and really dry nose, bleed, and just awful stuff for actually several months. And you know, I did get better over time. I did have a battery taste in my mouth. It was sort of odd, but you know, all thyroid cancer patients experience different sorts of things. So that's all I wanted to say about that. If you have any questions about the low iodine diet, or if you have any more questions for me, please feel free to send me a direct message on Instagram or leave me a message in the comments below, and I promise to get back to you on that. So I do want to talk about how I came to realize that I still had cancer, and that it was actually worse than we originally thought. So when you have your thyroid removed, or at least in most cases, your ENT is able to remove the tumor and surrounding tissues around it that look cancerous. And that's what happened. My ENT, you know, they make a cut kind of in the middle, they kind of take it apart. It's really gross. But my ENT is really good, and my ENT, his physician's assistant, I love dearly. They did a beautiful job on my incision. But I noticed a couple of months after, especially after experiencing the radioactive iodine, that I was just in severe pain. And it wasn't like your everyday headache type of pain. I mean, it was really bad. I felt like I was being stabbed. I felt like my throat, my neck was on fire, and in very specific spots. So they, you know, thought that that was unusual. So of course the next step was to have, you know, more testing done. So I did have a CT of my neck done after a full body scan. And ironically, guys, the full body scan, and this is what makes me an odd case, the full body radiodyne scan that I had done came back not showing any traces of papillary cancer in my body. So it had not spread anywhere else. There was no sign that there was any sort of cancer or tumor that had spread. But when I had my neck CT, my ENT did see that I did have growth on the right side of my neck. There were 6, I believe. They weren't able to tell in just the CT. They didn't know until they actually opened me up. But there were 3 especially very suspicious looking cells. Not cells, but tumors. Balls, cysts, growths, masses, whatever you want to call it, in my neck. So the next step was to have a biopsy, and I had already prepared myself for this because I kind of experienced this over the next couple of months, waiting to get this diagnosis that I still had cancer. So in my mind, I was already prepared for the worst. I had done research on radical neck dissections. I had done research on YouTube, even though there aren't nearly as many stories on YouTube about neck dissections as there are thyroidectomies. And so I was prepared. So when my biopsy did come back positive, it kind of gave me, I was sort of more at ease. I had to prepare for that surgery, but it also kind of gave me a sense of relief. I knew that I was not cancer-free and that hopefully this next procedure would do the trick. So that April, I went and I had my consult at Emory, which is fantastic, with my otolaryngologist, and they do neck dissections there. Unfortunately, where I live, they do neck dissections, but they don't do the type of neck dissections that are as advanced as the one that I needed to have in order to remove the tumors that I still had in my neck. So in my next video, I will get into my neck dissection and I'll talk more about that. I just wanted to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, and just tell you guys to always listen to your body. There were times, and are still times, and have been times, where even the doctors that I love and trust so much had to take a closer look, because I would say, not that they didn't believe me, but at first glance, it looked like I was okay. And so I knew in my body that there was something wrong. So just trust in yourself. Doctors, especially the really good ones like that I have, always do the best they can, but we know most of the time when there's something not right in our bodies. And after ignoring the fact that I had cancer for several years, when I felt like there was something wrong, I kind of just went the exact opposite direction and decided that as soon as I noticed something wrong in my body, I would take the initiative to figure out what and why that was. So I am very grateful that I asked my doctors to take a closer look, and I am very grateful that they did, that they found what they needed to find and did what they needed to do to aid in me being better and me being cured. And that's what we're getting to, and that's the hope. Again, I'll find out soon where we are, if there's no cancer in my body, or if it's, like I said, so small that there's really nothing to be done about it. I am happy with either outcome, but honestly and truly, if it's still there, it's still there, and I'm okay. I'm safe. I have faith in my doctors. I have faith in the Lord, the universe, and in myself especially. I know that it will be okay. So just please always advocate for yourself, you guys. You're not crazy. If you feel like there's something wrong, 9 times out of 10, trust your gut. There is. I love y'all. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.